Hi, my name is Lena, and I'm 26 years old. The day I got approved for my first real credit card, I felt like I had finally stepped into adulthood for the second time. The first time was when I moved out at 20, full of dreams and poor decisions. This time, though, it felt different, quieter, steadier, more earned. I'd spent years trying to clean up the mess of my early 20s, late payments, job changes, broken leases, and one too many emergency loans that were never really emergencies. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel, like it, spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. When the email came through, congratulations. Your credit card has been approved. I sat there staring at it like it was a golden ticket. I wasn't thinking about spending or shopping. I was thinking about dignity, about having something under my name again that I hadn't ruined. Ethan was the first person I told. My older brother had always had a way of making every moment feel bigger. He'd pat me on the shoulder and say things like, "That's my girl," as if he had personally coached me through every small success. I loved that about him once. He had a warmth that filled a room, and even when he was lying, he did it with a smile that made you want to believe him. "That's great, Lena," he said when I told him. "Finally getting that financial independence, huh?" I laughed. "Yeah, about 6 years late, but better late than never." He nodded, then paused. "Actually, this might sound crazy, but you might be able to use that new credit to build even faster." I was just talking to a dealer about getting a car. I should have known that pause meant something. Ethan's pauses were never empty. They were waiting for opportunity. "A car?" I asked, half curious, half cautious. "Yeah, nothing fancy," he said, brushing it off. "Just something reliable to get around." But they said I could get better financing if I had a cosigner or if someone with solid credit made the initial purchase. It would only be temporary, of course. I'd cover everything. "You'd actually benefit from it, boost your credit score like crazy." He said it so easily, so confidently that I didn't even stop to question the math of it. I wanted to be the kind of person who could say yes to family without overthinking it. Especially after all the times Ethan had helped me move apartments or given me rides to interviews. "Let me think about it," I said. He smiled as if that meant yes. "Of course. Just think about it, no pressure." But pressure has a funny way of showing up disguised as love. For the next few days, every time I saw him, he'd bring it up gently. Over dinner with our parents. During a phone call about something completely unrelated. He'd slip it in like a passing comment. "You know, that car thing could really help both of us." I wanted to believe him. I really did. So one afternoon, I met him at the dealership. I still remember the smell of new leather and the hum of salesmen pacing around. Ethan acted like he owned the place, shaking hands, cracking jokes, telling the salesman, "My sister's got great credit. She's helping me get this started." Those words, "my sister's got great credit," made me feel proud and sick at the same time. When the papers came out, my name was the one typed in bold on top. The salesman smiled at me as he slid the contract across the desk. "You're the primary holder, right?" Ethan jumped in before I could answer. "Yeah, just for now. We're working it out together." The man nodded and moved on, not knowing the small earthquake that sentence caused inside me. I signed anyway. I told myself it was fine. That's what family does, they help each other. And Ethan had always been there, even when I didn't deserve it. Driving home, Ethan was euphoric. The car was silver, smooth, and fast. He turned the music up, rolled down the windows, and said, "See? Look at us, teamwork. You're building credit, I'm building my business. Win-win." I laughed, trying to believe it. The wind felt good on my face. I told myself this was the beginning of something stable. Something grown up, but the first night after that, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the papers. About the way Ethan had rushed me when I hesitated. About the way the salesman had looked confused when Ethan answered for me. I tried to tell myself I was being dramatic, that Ethan wouldn't hurt me, not him. Still, every time my phone buzzed, I'd glance at it, half expecting an alert from the credit company. A few weeks passed. Ethan was always busy, always on a call, always handling things. When I asked about payments, he said, "Relax, I've got it covered." When I asked for proof, he'd laugh. "You don't trust me now?" That question always stopped me. Because no, I didn't want to admit that I did in single quotes T. One evening, our mother called me out of the blue. "Ethan told us you two are working on your credit together." That's so good, honey. I'm proud of you. He's really helping you think long term. Helping me? I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heartbeat pounding. Yeah, I said quietly. He's helping. It was easier than explaining. Easier than making waves. After the call, I sat in the dark with the credit card in my hand. The shiny silver edges reflected the streetlight through my window. My name was embossed on it, Lena Brooks. Clean, simple, mine, except it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like something borrowed. Something being used in ways I couldn't control. Ethan stopped by later that week, tossing his car keys on my counter. You good? You look tired. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Just working a lot. He nodded. You worry too much. You'll see, this'll all pay off soon. He said it so easily, as if the future was already written, and I was just too cautious to read it right, but somewhere inside me a quiet unease began to take root. It wasn't anger, yet just that dull ache you get when you know something isn't right, but you can't prove it. At night, I kept replaying his words. You'll see, this'll all pay off soon. Maybe it would. Maybe it wouldn't. All I knew was that the card with my name on it was now tied to something I didn't fully understand. And deep down, a small voice whispered that I was going to find out exactly what that meant, sooner than I was ready for, the first time I heard Ethan say it out loud. I thought I'd misheard him. We were at my parents' house for dinner. The usual Sunday gathering where Mom overcooked the roast and Dad sat at the end of the table pretending not to hear when anyone argued. It was comfortable chaos. The kind I grew up with, voices overlapping, laughter too loud. Stories were told until they didn't even sound like the truth anymore. Ethan was in one of his storytelling moods that night. His voice always carried through the room, confident and warm. The kind that made people lean in even when he was saying nothing special. So, get this, he said between bites. I finally convinced Lena to get serious about her credit. I told her, you can't just sit around waiting for things to fix themselves. You have to build credit, take responsibility, you know? I froze mid-chew. Mom laughed, proud and soft. Oh, that's wonderful, Ethan. You've always been good with money. I'm glad you're helping her. Helping me? Ethan nodded like a teacher grading his own test. Yeah, it's been good for her. She's learning how to handle it. I'm kind of walking her through the process, making sure she doesn't make any rookie mistakes. The words hit like a slow slap. I looked at him, but he didn't glance my way. His tone was light, his smile relaxed. Like he was doing charity work. Part of me wanted to speak up, to correct him, to tell them it was my card, my approval, my name on the line. But another part of me froze, the way you do when you realize the room isn't really listening for your truth anyway. Lena? Mom said, turning toward me. That's so good of him, isn't it? I always told you Ethan has a good head on his shoulders. You're lucky to have a brother like that. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I said quietly. I guess I am. It wasn't worth the fight. Not there. Not over dinner. Ethan gave me a knowing look then, the kind that said, see? I'm handling it. And just like that, the conversation moved on to work, to politics, to Mom's garden. My truth got buried under mashed potatoes and polite laughter. On the drive home, I kept replaying it. How easily he had shifted the story, how effortlessly everyone believed him. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Like he owned the version of reality we all had to agree on. When I confronted him later, I tried to keep my voice calm. Why did you tell them it was your idea? He raised an eyebrow. Because it was. It wasn't, Ethan. You're the one who asked me to use my card. He shrugged. Semantics. You wouldn't have even applied if I hadn't pushed you. I'm just making sure you look responsible in their eyes. You should thank me. I blinked, stunned. Thank you? For lying? He laughed softly, as if I was being dramatic. Oh, come on. Don't make it bigger than it is. It's for your good, Lena. You have to learn to handle things like an adult. I'm helping you look smart, capable, put together. His words were smooth, but each one landed heavy. For my good. I walked away before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to convince myself it didn't matter what people thought as long as I knew the truth. But it did matter. Because the truth felt smaller every time I stayed quiet. Days turned into weeks and the story grew legs. Mom told her sister. Dad mentioned it to his friends. Even my coworker, who knew my brother through someone else, said, "I heard your brother's helping you fix your finances." That's really nice of him. I smiled weakly, but inside something twisted. Every time someone repeated it, it felt like a little piece of me disappeared. Like I was slowly being written out of my own life. One evening, I went over to my parents again. Ethan was there, of course leaning against the kitchen counter, spinning another version of events. Yeah, I told Lena she needs to learn how credit works. She's getting there. It's all about discipline. Mom was beaming at him. "You're such a good brother." This time, I couldn't hold it in. "Actually," I said, forcing a smile, "I'm the one who's been paying the bills." He just used the card for his car. The room went quiet. Ethan turned to me, his face unreadable. "What are you talking about?" "You know what I'm talking about," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "You bought a car with my card. You said you'd pay it back." He laughed, a little too loud. "Lena, don't make it sound shady. We both benefit from this, remember? I'm helping you build credit." Mom frowned. "Is that true, Ethan?" He looked right at her, calm as ever. "Of course. She just worries too much. You know how she gets." The way he said it, so patient, so rational, made me feel like I was the unstable one. Like I was throwing a tantrum over a misunderstanding. Mom sighed, turning to me. "Sweetheart, if he's helping you, maybe just let it be. Don't turn everything into an argument." And just like that, I was the problem again. The difficult one. The emotional one. I felt my throat tighten. "Right," I said softly. "I'll let it be." Ethan smiled faintly, victorious. "See? Everything's fine." But it wasn't, not inside me. Later that night, I sat in my car outside my apartment building, hands gripping the steering wheel. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. I didn't cry. I just sat there, realizing how easy it was for people to believe the version that made them comfortable. And maybe that was the worst part. Not just that Ethan lied, but that everyone preferred his lie over my truth. I started keeping a notebook then. Just small things, dates, amounts, fragments of conversations. Not because I planned to expose him, but because I needed somewhere my version existed. A record that I wasn't crazy. Every time I wrote something down, I felt a little steadier. A little more real. Still, when I saw Ethan driving my car around town, laughing, waving, playing the role of the golden sun, I felt a knot in my chest tighten. He wasn't just using my credit anymore. He was using my story, and I was the one letting him. That thought stayed with me long after. I closed my notebook that night. "You're letting him define your worth," my mind whispered. I didn't know it yet. But that whisper would grow louder until it finally broke through the silence. I'd been living in for years. The first credit bill came on a Thursday afternoon, tucked between a grocery flyer and a water bill. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a few $100s at most. I sat on the couch, coffee still warm beside me, and tore the envelope open. The number stared back at me like a punch in the chest. $8,472.19. For a long moment, I just stared. Then I read it again, slower this time, thinking maybe I'd missed a decimal point. But no, the total balance was real. And underneath it, in neat black print, was my name, Lena Brooks, not his. Mine. My hands started to shake. I picked up my phone and called Ethan immediately. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said, trying to sound calm. The first bill came. It's huge. Can you call me back?" I waited. No answer. I texted him. Then called again. Nothing. Hours passed before he finally replied. "Ethan, chill, I'll handle it. I told you this was normal at first." Don't stress. Normal. I stared at that word until it blurred. Nothing about owing $8,000 felt normal. That night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice in my head, calm, confident, dismissive. "Don't stress." But how do you not stress when the bill has your name on it? When every dollar owed feels like proof that you've made another mistake you can't undo. By Sunday, I was back at my parents' house for dinner. I hadn't planned to bring it up, but it came spilling out anyway. "Ethan, we need to talk about the card," I said quietly while Mom set the table. He didn't even look up from his phone. "What about it?" The first bill came. $8,000, Ethan. That's not what we agreed. He sighed like I was ruining the mood. Relax, Lena, I told you I'm paying it. You'll get the money. When? When I can. Stop acting like I'm stealing from you. Mom turned around, frowning. What's this about now? Ethan smiled at her, that charming practice smile. Nothing, Mom. She's just panicking about her statement. You know how she gets. I told her it's under control. Her face softened immediately. Sweetheart, you shouldn't worry so much, she said to me. Your brother's helping you. He's always been good with these things. I felt heat rise in my chest. Helping me? He used my card to buy a car, Mom. Ethan laughed, light and dismissive. Oh, come on, Lena, you make it sound so dramatic. We agreed on this. You'd get the credit history. I'd cover the payments. It's a win-win. That's not what's happening, I said. I haven't seen a single payment. Mom sighed. Lena, please. Not at dinner. You know your tone doesn't help. My tone, I bit my lip, looked down at my plate and said nothing else. Because what was the point? They already decided who was reasonable in the story. And it wasn't me, for the rest of the meal. Ethan took the spotlight, cracking jokes, telling everyone how I was finally learning financial discipline. Dad chuckled and said, about time. Everyone laughed. Everyone except me. I smiled the way you do when you're trying not to fall apart in public after dinner. While Mom cleared the dishes, Ethan leaned close and whispered, You need to calm down before you make yourself look bad. My throat tightened. You're lying to them. He shrugged. I'm protecting you. They wouldn't understand. Understand what? That you used me? He tilted his head slightly, smirking. You agreed, remember? You signed the papers. No one forced you. I wanted to scream, but the words got stuck behind my teeth. I realized then that his power wasn't in what he said, it was in how he could make me question myself. When I got home, I opened my laptop and stared at the digital version of the bill again. It didn't care about family ties or stories or helping. It just said what was owed and to whom to me. That night, I took out an old notebook and started writing. I didn't know why. Maybe to make sense of it. Maybe just to have a place where my version existed. I wrote down the date, the amount, every conversation we'd had. I even printed screenshots of his texts and taped them inside. Each word I wrote felt like I was reclaiming a little piece of myself. But the next few weeks didn't get easier. Every time I saw the car shiny, silver, parked in front of my parents' house, it made my stomach twist. It wasn't just a car anymore. It was a symbol of everything I couldn't say out loud. He drove it everywhere, proudly. People would compliment him, and he'd grin and say, Yeah, I helped my sister get this card. She's learning fast. Learning what? How it feels to be invisible. Once I overheard Mom talking to a neighbor. Ethan's been such a blessing for Lena, she said. He's teaching her how to be responsible. I wanted to walk over and tell her everything. Show her the bills, the messages, the debt. But I didn't. I just smiled tightly when she repeated it to me later, as if it was something to be proud of. Every month, a new bill came higher than the last. Each time I asked Ethan about it, he promised he was handling it. Each time, I felt my patience were thinner. I started avoiding family dinners. The noise, the laughter, the pretending it was too much. I'd send a polite text. Can't make it tonight. Work stuff. But one night, I drove past their house on my way home. The car was parked out front, shining under the porch light. My card, my name. His story. I sat in my own car across the street and watched for a minute. Inside, through the window, I saw them laughing. My mom passing him a plate, my dad shaking his head at one of his jokes. It looked like a perfect picture. And for a split second, I almost convinced myself I was the one who had ruined it by asking too many questions, by wanting fairness, by daring to want to be believed. But deep down, something had shifted. The silence that used to feel like peace now felt like prison. I didn't know it yet, but I was getting close to breaking it. It happened on a Wednesday morning, the kind that started quietly, with sunlight leaking through the blinds and the illusion that life was normal. I was paying bills online before work when I saw the message on my screen. Your account has been temporarily frozen due to a maxed out balance. I stared at it, blinking as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. Maxed out? How? I hadn't used the card in months. My chest tightened as I clicked through the statement. There was dozens of new charges, repairs, upgrades, a sound system. Car insurance, gas. Ethan. I didn't even think. I grabbed my phone, hand shaking so hard I could barely type. Me, Ethan, what did you do? The card's maxed. My account is frozen. Ethan, chill, it's temporary. I'll pay it. Stop panicking. The same word again, chill. The same tone that made me feel small. This time something inside me snapped. I called him. He didn't answer. I called again. The third time, he picked up. What now? He said, sounding annoyed like I'd interrupted his perfect morning. What now? My voice trembled. Ethan, my card is frozen. I can't even pay my rent this week. He sighed. I told you I'll take care of it. You're overreacting again. Overreacting? You've been using my card for months without paying a single bill. Do you even understand what that means for me? You're acting like I stole something, he snapped. You agreed to help me. You said you trusted me. That was before you lied. Before you maxed out my credit and told everyone you were helping me. There was a pause, then a cold laugh. You're unbelievable. You get one little taste of adult responsibility and suddenly you're the victim? My breath caught. Ethan, this isn't a joke. You've destroyed my credit. Enough. He yelled, voice sharp and final. You think you're the only one struggling? I needed that car to get to work, to get ahead. You're selfish, Lena. All you care about is how this affects you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Selfish? I've been covering for you. I stayed quiet while you lied to everyone. I let you use me because I thought you cared. He went silent for a second, then muttered, You always make things harder than they have to be. That line broke something in me, for years. I'd been the peacekeeper, the one who apologized. Smoothed things over, tried to keep the family from falling apart. I'd kept quiet to keep the peace. But this wasn't peace anymore. This was suffocation. I felt my voice harden. No, not this time. You're not making this my fault. He tried to interrupt, but I kept talking. My voice was shaking, but it didn't stop. You can twist it however you want, Ethan, but you used me. You took advantage of my trust. You made me believe silence was love. It's not. It's control. Lena, don't, I said. Don't talk. Listen for once. There was another long pause. I could hear him breathing through the phone, quick and uneven. Finally, he muttered, You're really doing this now? You're going to turn on your own brother? I'm not turning on you, I said quietly. I'm just done letting you walk over me. He hung up. The silence afterward was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything I never said before. That night, I drove to my parents' house. The silver car was parked in the driveway like a monument to every lie between us. I walked past it without looking. Inside, Mom was at the table folding laundry. She smiled when she saw me. Lena, dinner's almost ready. Ethan just stepped out. Mom, I said softly. I need to tell you something. She looked up, frowning. What's wrong? I told her everything. The charges, the debt, the lies, the phone call. I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry. I just told the truth, slowly and clearly, like someone reading a confession they'd written years ago. When I finished, she just sat there, stunned. He wouldn't do that, she said finally, shaking her head. Ethan's not that kind of person. He did, I said. He did, Mom. Her eyes softened, but her words stayed careful. You two have always been so different. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Don't say things you'll regret. I felt my throat tighten. I already regret not saying them sooner. She sighed and looked down at her hands. I could see her struggling between believing her son and protecting our peace. I didn't blame her. That's what we all did. We protected the illusion. I went upstairs and packed the few things I'd left there years ago, an old jacket, a box of letters, a photo of me and Ethan as kids, smiling like we'd never hurt each other. When I came back down, Mom's eyes filled with tears. Where are you going? Home, I said. My home? The one I pay for. Lena, please, I'm not angry, I said quietly. I just can't stay where silence feels safer than truth. I hugged her before she could respond. She didn't hug me back at first, but after a second, she did tightly. Like she knew this time I wasn't coming back just to keep the peace. When I got home, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, credit statements, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. My life was still a mess financially, emotionally, everything. But I felt lighter. The kind of light that comes when you finally stop pretending you're fine. I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence: "Silence costs more than money ever will." Then I closed it, exhaled, and let the stillness fill the room. Tomorrow, I'd start figuring things out, call the bank, look for help, rebuild what I could. But tonight, I just needed to breathe in the sound of my own voice finally existing. The first few weeks after I moved out felt like standing in the wreckage after a storm, everything broken, everything quiet. My phone was filled with calls from collection agencies, my inbox with payment reminders, and my nights with the echo of Ethan's last words: "You're selfish." For a while, I believed him. That's what silence does. It twists your reflection until you can't tell who's wrong anymore. But then, one evening, sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by unopened mail, I decided to stop being scared of envelopes. I took a deep breath, opened the first one, and started reading. Numbers, balances, deadlines, reality. It was ugly, but it was mine. Now, that night marked the start of something small but real. I made a list titled "Fixing the Damage." Under it, I wrote 3 things: call the bank, set up a payment plan, learn what credit recovery even means. It wasn't glamorous. There was no dramatic montage or overnight success. Just slow, steady effort. One phone call at a time. One bill at a time. The first call to the bank took nearly 2 hours. I explained everything: how the debt wasn't technically mine, how my brother had used my card without paying, how I had proof. The woman on the line listened patiently, typing notes. "I understand, Miss Brooks," she said finally. "We can't remove the charges, but we can help you rebuild. It'll take time." I thanked her, and when I hung up, I cried not from despair, but relief. Someone had finally said it out loud. It'll take time. That meant there was a way forward. So I built routines. I worked extra hours at the bookstore. I canceled every unnecessary subscription. I learned to cook with whatever I had. I tracked every dollar in a notebook that quickly became a kind of diary, a record not just of expenses, but of progress. Every Friday night, instead of feeling sorry for myself, I'd check my balance. Sometimes it went down by $20, sometimes by $200. Either way, it was progress. And with every payment, I felt something inside me shifting to like I was slowly repaying the emotional debt I owed myself for years. Months passed. My credit score crawled upward, just a few points at first, then a few more. The same app that once made me sick to open now made me smile. One evening in early spring, my phone lit up with a familiar name. "Ethan." I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Hey," he said, voice tentative. "Been a while." "Yeah," I replied. My tone was calm, neutral. I just wanted to say, "Sorry, I guess." "For what happened?" I waited, but the words felt hollow, like they were rehearsed. "I didn't mean for things to get so out of hand," he continued. "You know how stressed I was. And you kind of overreacted." There it was. The same pattern, half apology, half blame. The old me would have tried to reason with him, to smooth things over. But this time, I just listened. When he paused, I said, "I accept your apology, Ethan, but I'm not going back to pretending nothing happened." He scoffed softly. "You're still holding a grudge, huh?" "No," I said. "I'm holding boundaries." There was silence on the line. I could almost feel his confusion, his discomfort. I realized then that he wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't bend. "I hope you're doing okay," I said finally. "Really, but I have to hang up now." He mumbled something about staying in touch. I didn't promise anything. When I hung up, the quiet felt different this time, not heavy, not hollow. Just peaceful. That night, I took out my notebook and wrote, "Forgiving doesn't mean inviting someone back into the same place they broke." It became my new rule. By summer, things started to feel steady. I'd opened a secure credit card in my own name, just $300 at first, but enough to prove I could handle it. I made every payment on time. I checked my score once a month and smiled at the tiny victories. But beyond numbers, something deeper was rebuilding. I caught myself laughing more at work. I started saying no without guilt. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. There was a lightness in small things, buying myself a plant, making dinner for friends, walking home at dusk with a clear mind. One afternoon while organizing receipts, I found an old photo of Ethan and me as kids sitting on the hood of our dad's car. Both of us grinning, the world still simple. I didn't feel anger anymore, just distance. Time had turned the wound into a scar, visible but not painful. Later that week, I checked my credit report again. It wasn't perfect, but it was improving. The numbers were still catching up to the person I'd become. I smiled and whispered, still building credit. But this time, I wasn't just talking about money. I was building credit in myself, the kind that doesn't show up on reports. The kind measured in boundaries, forgiveness, self-respect, and quiet strength. When I looked in the mirror that night, I didn't see the girl who stayed silent or the woman who broke down on the phone. I saw someone learning, still flawed, still healing, but free. And as I turned off the light, I thought about the next step, not just financial stability, but emotional independence, because rebuilding credit was never just about debt. It was about rebuilding me. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel, like it, spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from.